The dead don't like to be disturbed. You feel it the moment you step off the path. The air thickens, heavy with something unseen. The cold isn't just the night chill, it's deeper, reaching into your bones, pressing against your skin like damp soil. At first it's subtle, a shift in the wind that doesn't touch the trees, the sensation of being watched, though no eyes should be here. The graveyard is quiet, too quiet. No crickets, no rustling leaves, just the sound of your own breath, uneven and too loud in the stillness. You try to shake it off. It's just a shortcut, just a few minutes saved. The cracked headstones and twisted statues are nothing more than stone and weathered names. But then the lanterns flicker, though there is no wind. A mausoleum door, rusted and chained, creaks open just an inch, just enough to make your stomach drop. Something is awake. You glance at the gate. It should still be shut. You know it was shut, but now it stands open, waiting, inviting. You cannot leave the way you came. You cannot run. You can only survive until sunrise, but to do that, you must follow the rules. Ignore them, and the graveyard will claim you as its own. Tip 1. Don't step on graves. Respect matters. A graveyard is not just a place of mourning, it is a boundary, a fragile thread separating the living from the dead. Every tombstone, every sunken patch of earth, is a marker of something that should be at rest, but rest is not guaranteed. The dead are not fond of trespassers. You may think it's harmless, cutting through the rows of graves, weaving between headstones to save a little time. But the moment your foot lands where it shouldn't, you will feel it. The shift beneath your weight, the unsettling give of the soil, as though something beneath you has stirred. At first it may feel like nothing more than damp earth, but then the cold will creep in, not the crisp bite of night air, but something heavier, something wrong. A sensation like fingertips brushing against your ankles, like the ground itself is aware of your presence. Step again, and the change will be undeniable. The headstone nearest to you might darken, the name carved into it fading as if time is reclaiming it. The wind will carry whispers, not words, not at first, just a sound, a breath rising from beneath the soil. And then, if you listen too closely, you will hear them, the voices of those who remember what it means to be disturbed. It may start as a murmur, like the sigh of dry leaves scraping against stone. But if you hesitate, if you let curiosity pull you deeper into your mistake, the sound will grow. Whispers rising into frantic pleas, into choked warnings, into something that is not quite human. If you feel the ground soften beneath you, do not look down. If you hear the voices calling, do not answer. And if the earth breaks open, if pale fingers claw their way to the surface, grasping for the warmth of the living, run. Because once the dead have your scent, they do not let go easily. Tip 2. If a statue moves, don't blink. Cemeteries are filled with statues. Some stand as angels, wings unfurled in silent prayer. Others weep, their stone faces carved into eternal mourning. Some are broken, their features weathered by time and rain, cracked hands reaching for something long forgotten. You walk past them without a second thought, but you should pay attention. Statues do not move. They should not move. But if you notice that one seems closer than before, if the tilt of its head has changed, if the outstretched hand now points in a different direction, do not blink. At first, it may seem like a trick of the light, a shadow shifting under the moon, the angle of your approach. You may tell yourself it's nothing. It is not nothing. Statues do not move unless they want to. You may test it just once to be sure. A glance over your shoulder, a blink too long, and when you turn back, you will find it closer. The changes will be subtle at first. A hand that was once at its side now lifted. A face that had once been impassive, now twisted in something unreadable, something hungry. You will tell yourself that it has always looked that way. You will be wrong. Some statues watch, others hunt. The oldest statues, the ones covered in moss, their inscriptions long faded, those are the worst. They have been waiting the longest. If you must walk through the graveyard at night, do not stop near them. Keep your head forward, your pace steady. If one is in your path, you must walk around it, not between them. The moment you pass between two statues, you give them an opportunity. And if you must look at them, never blink. Blinking is an invitation, a momentary lapse of awareness. The second your eyes close, they will shift. You will not see it happen. You will only see the aftermath, the new position, the unnatural angle of the head, the arms that were once still now reaching. If their hands are open, do not take what they offer. If their faces are weeping, do not comfort them. And if you hear the grinding of stone against stone, if you hear the slow scrape of shifting weight that does not belong in the silence of the graveyard, run, because the moment you lose sight of them completely, the moment they disappear from view, they will no longer be statues. Tip 3. The mausoleum door was locked for a reason. Mausoleums are not just memorials. They are not merely cold stone vaults holding the remains of the long dead. Some of them are prisons. The dead are meant to stay buried, sealed beneath earth and stone, their names etched into weathered headstones. But some are not content with rest. Some do not belong beneath the ground. And for those, the mausoleum is not a tomb, it is a cage. If you pass by a mausoleum at night, do not approach it. You might feel drawn to it, an unnatural pull in your chest, an urge to step closer despite the growing weight of dread settling in your stomach. The air near these places is always colder, thick with something that makes it harder to breathe. The stone itself seems darker than the others, untouched by time, as if whatever is inside has kept it preserved. Most doors will be locked, chained shut with rusted iron, the kind of neglect that suggests no one has entered in decades. That is how it should be. But sometimes, just sometimes, you will find one ajar. If the door is open, do not investigate. It does not matter how deep the darkness inside seems. It does not matter if you hear something, a whisper, a sigh, the slow shifting of something heavy against stone. You must keep walking, because if something is inside, it has been waiting. And if the door is open, it means it is awake. Some claim that if you step inside, you will never step out again. Others say the mausoleum is not a passage for you, but for something else, a doorway that should never be unsealed. If you hear knocking from the inside, do not knock back. If the whispering turns to pleading, do not answer. And if you see footprints leading out of the mausoleum but none leading in, leave immediately, because something is walking free that should never have left. And if the door is open, it might still be hungry. Tip 4. The lanterns flicker when they are near. Light is supposed to be safe. It holds back the dark, keeps the unknown at bay. But in this graveyard, the lanterns do not protect you. They warn you. The old lanterns lining the paths should not flicker. Their flames are shielded behind glass, untouched by wind or passing footsteps. Yet sometimes the glow will tremble, shrinking down to the faintest ember before surging back to life. This is not random. It means something is near. At first, you might mistake it for a trick of the night, a failing wick, a subtle breeze, but then it happens again. Another lantern flickers, just ahead of you, or perhaps behind, perhaps several at once, like something unseen is moving between them, brushing past the flames with cold, with hunger. Do not stop walking. If the flames begin to gutter, something is watching. Something is moving. The lanterns are your only warning before the darkness grows too thick, before the air turns heavy with the scent of decay, before the whisper of shifting feet reaches your ears. If the lanterns go out completely, you are no longer alone. You will feel it before you see it, the cold pressing against your back, the silence that deepens into something unbearable. You might hear breathing, slow and wet, though the air is still. You might feel the softest brush of fingers across your arm, though there is nothing beside you. Do not reach for a match. Do not attempt to relight the flame. If the lanterns have gone out, then whatever is near you does not want to be seen. Some say, if you keep walking, if you ignore the cold breath against your neck, if you pretend not to hear the footsteps just behind yours, the lanterns will eventually flicker back to life. The thing that watches will grow bored. It will let you go. But if the flames turn blue, run. Because it means they are no longer watching, they are following. Tip 5. Never acknowledge the voices calling your name. The dead remember, maybe not in the way the living do, not with thoughts and memories bound to flesh and time, but they remember sounds, they remember echoes. And in this graveyard, if you hear a voice calling your name, it means something remembers you. It might start softly, just a whisper carried on the wind, so faint that you tell yourself you imagined it. But then it happens again, closer. You will recognize the voice. That is the worst part. It might be a friend, a family member, someone you trust, someone who is not here, someone who should not be here. Do not turn around. Do not answer. It is not them. The dead are patient. They have all the time in the world to wear you down, to make you doubt, to make you believe. If you hesitate, if you let even a sliver of curiosity take hold, the whispers will change. The voice will shift. It will sound afraid now, desperate. You will hear it shake, hear the plea buried beneath the words. Please, help me. Don't leave me here. You must keep walking, because if you stop, if you let your gaze drift toward the shadows between the graves, if you let your voice tremble with an answer, they will know that you are listening. And once you let them know you can hear them, they will never stop speaking. The whispers will follow you home. They will press against your windows, slip through the cracks beneath your door. They will wait until you are alone, until you are tired, until your mind is weak enough to listen again. And one night, when you are too exhausted to resist, you will answer, and that will be the last thing you ever say. Tip 6. If you see another living person, be sure they are alive. You are not supposed to be here, but neither is anyone else. Graveyards at night are lonely places. You might think you are alone, but sooner or later you will see them, a figure standing among the graves, watching. Maybe they are just ahead of you on the path, standing perfectly still beneath the broken lantern light. Maybe they are further away, half hidden behind a mausoleum, their form little more than a shadow against the cold stone. Or perhaps, if you are unlucky, they will be right beside you, waiting for you to notice them. Your first instinct will be relief. A person, another lost soul, proof that you are not alone in this nightmare. But you must be sure, because not everything that walks among the graves is alive. Do not call out to them. Do not ask for help. Instead, watch them. A living person will shift their weight, breathe in the cold, fidget with their hands. They will cast a shadow, even in the dim light. They will acknowledge you in return, hesitant but human. If they do none of these things, walk the other way. If their breath does not fog in the cold air, they are not breathing. If their feet do not disturb the brittle leaves, they are not touching the ground. And if they smile, if their mouth stretches too wide, too slow, if it feels wrong in a way you cannot explain, do not let them touch you. No matter what they say, no matter how lost or afraid they may seem, do not take their hand, because if you do, you will realize they are colder than the night itself. And the next time someone wanders through this graveyard, they will see you standing there, silent and still, waiting for your turn to reach out. Tip 7. Some graves are newer than others. Avoid them. Not all graves are old. Not all graves are settled. You will know them when you see them. The soil will be looser, the headstones smoother, the names carved with sharp precision. The flowers placed upon them will still have color, still hold the scent of life. But life does not belong here, not anymore. Fresh graves are restless. The earth above them has not yet learned to stay still, has not yet pressed down with the weight of time. The ones buried beneath are still close to this world, still listening, and some of them are still waiting. If you step too close, you might feel it. The shift beneath your feet, the slow settling of something not quite finished. You might hear something deep below, something muffled, something moving. The wind might change. The night might grow too quiet. There are stories whispered among those who have wandered where they should not. Stories of travelers who have seen fingerprints on the inside of a headstone, smeared in dust. Stories of those who have heard scratching beneath their boots, slow and desperate. Some claim it is just the grave settling, the shifting of dirt. They are wrong. If you hear knocking from below, do not stop to listen. If you hear a voice, run, because not everyone buried here was meant to stay, and some graves are not deep enough. Tip 8. The iron fence is not for keeping you out. Graveyards are not built to protect the living. They are built to contain the dead. The iron fence that surrounds the cemetery is not just decoration. It is not just a boundary. It is a warning. Iron has always been a barrier, a ward against the unnatural. It holds back things that should not cross over, keeps them bound to the places where they were buried. That is why the gates were once locked every night, why the bars were once strong and unbroken. But time weakens everything. If you see rust eating through the metal, if you notice the bars bent out of shape, if you find sections of the fence missing altogether, leave, because something has gotten out. The scratches on the posts are not from animals. The handprints on the iron are not from mourners. If you find the gate open, do not step through it. If the graveyard lets you in too easily, it is not planning to let you leave. And if you ever hear the sound of metal groaning, of iron bending and snapping in the dead of night, do not stop to see what is trying to break through. Because if the fence is no longer holding them back, nothing is. Tip 9. If you drop something, leave it. The graveyard is not kind to those who linger. It is easy to lose things in a place like this. A key slipping from your pocket, a phone tumbling into the grass, a glove left behind on a headstone. It will happen fast, so fast, that you won't even realize it's gone until you've taken a few steps forward. But by then, it's already too late. Do not go back for it. The ground here is not just dirt, it is hungry. At first, it may seem harmless, a small object disappearing into the leaves, barely noticeable in the dim light. But if you turn around, if you kneel to retrieve what was lost, you will find that the shadows have shifted. The grave you passed is no longer as it was. The wind that was still moments ago will begin to stir. And if you reach down, if your fingers brush against the earth, you might feel something brushing back. The graveyard is always watching, always waiting for a moment of weakness. Bending down, exposing the back of your neck, letting your hands hover too close to the ground. It is an invitation. Some things disappear forever when they touch this soil. Others do not return alone. If you hear a whisper as you reach down, stand up immediately. If the earth feels softer than it should, walk away. And if, when you turn back, your lost object is closer than it should be, run, because whatever picked it up wants to see if you will take it back. Tip number 10. Dawn will come, but you must be there to see it. The graveyard does not keep everyone it takes. Some make it through the night. Some follow the rules. Some survive. But survival is not just about lasting until morning. It is about making sure you are still yourself when the sun rises. You may think the worst is behind you as the sky begins to lighten, as the stars fade and the first sliver of dawn brushes against the headstones. But you must be careful. The things that stalk these graves do not like to be seen in the daylight, but that does not mean they are gone. You will feel the exhaustion set in, deeper than anything you have ever known. Your limbs will be heavy, your thoughts sluggish, your body urging you to rest. Do not stop moving. You will hear whispers behind you, growing softer, as if they are retreating. They are not. They are waiting. And worst of all, when you finally reach the gate, when you step onto the path that should lead you home, you may feel a hesitation, a pull, a sense that something is not quite right. Check your shadow. If it is too long, stretching behind you despite the rising sun, turn around immediately. If it flickers when nothing else does, you are not alone. And if, when you step beyond the iron gate, the air does not feel any warmer, if the morning light does not touch your skin, you did not make it out. You only thought you did. You walk away, but not alone. The graveyard fades behind you. The first rays of dawn stretch across the sky, pale and weak, casting long shadows across the path. Your breath is heavy, your limbs aching, but you are still standing. You survived, but survival does not mean escape. The iron gate swings closed behind you, groaning on its rusted hinges. You tell yourself it is just the wind. You do not look back. You do not need to, because something is watching. You will feel it long after you've left, the weight of unseen eyes, the whisper of cold fingers trailing too close to your skin. The night was supposed to end with the sunrise, but the graveyard does not let go so easily. Days will pass, maybe even weeks. You will convince yourself that it was nothing more than imagination, that the flickering lanterns and shifting statues were tricks of the light. You will tell yourself that the whispers were just the wind, that the grave beneath your feet did not move, that the footsteps behind you were only echoes of your own. And then, one night, as you pass by a darkened window, you will see something standing behind you, not close, not yet, but watching. The graveyard is far away now, but some roads only lead inward, and some doors once opened do not close.